Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. I'm here with the incredible Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. Very excited that he's in town because, of course, we've got that exhibit called These Mortal Remains, which has all this incredible stuff through the history of Pink Floyd, from Syd Barrett years all the way up until today. And Nick, welcome to the show. So good to see you. Hey, Nick, you got to talk to me about when you bought that first drum set that you bought, because it was like the equivalent of 15 American dollars, right?
That's right, yeah.
Can you tell me about what that was like? Because I think you had to carry it home on the subway. Was that true, too?
Yeah, no, that's right. It was about, I think, £7 10 shillings, which had money assembled through Christmas presents and so on. And I went to this shop called Chazzy Foots in Denman Street in Soho, and they were brilliant. They put together, I mean, it was pretty rough and ready, but it was a drum kit of sorts.
And who were you playing along to? Was it just the rock records of the day?
No, it was a band that we put together in the sort of classic way that actually we're just friends. We lived near each other, and we thought we should start a band. The fact that none of us could play any of the instruments made no difference at all.
That's how bands got to start, right?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. You know, when I listen back to those first couple of singles from 1967, both absolutely classic, Arnold Lane and See Emily Play. Do you think back, can you remember at the time, when you were checking out the lyrics and everything else that was going on sonically in those records, did you realize at the time how special that stuff really was?
Not particularly special, because at exactly the same time the Beatles were coming up with Sgt. Pepper. And they were using a lot more sort of complex ideas, technology, really. I think George Martin was bringing in phasing and flanging and all these sort of different tape echoes that were really being discovered at the time. And we actually had Joe Boyd producing on those, and Joe came up with the double speed piano and a couple of other things. It was very much a matter of learning and beginning to understand how these things are done. But to be fair, I think that was very much Joe's influence rather than us coming up with the ideas.
That's amazing, looking back on that. With those songwriting, the things that he was coming up with lyrically, do you at that period of time were you like, wow, Syd's coming from a very different place? You guys were truly pioneers in psychedelia at that period of time.
Well, I mean, the thing about Syd's early work is how broad it is, actually, because something like Interstellar Overdrive, which is sort of completely loose and structured. But then there were things like Scarecrow, and there's a sort of English, almost a return to English folk music. He actually had this very broad brush when it came to ideas, and I think the psychedelia was picked up as a sort of selling point almost, because it sort of followed us around for years, and even Dark Side is occasionally seen as being a psychedelic record, which it's so completely not.
Exactly. Yeah, that's incredible. So tell me about those early sessions at EMI Abbey Road, because it was very stiff, the way things were done back then, because you rock band, you'd go in there. Beatles are down the hallway doing Sgt. Pepper while you're doing those early singles or working on Piper at the Gates of Dawn, right? But they have lab coats, there's engineers plugging things in, so it's kind of...
It was changing very quickly, because I think even Abbey Road realised that things were not going to be done in the same way, because in order to get the records done, people like the Beatles and eventually us didn't want to work sessions and just do a morning and just do an afternoon and then knock it on the head. We wanted, if not unlimited studio time, we want to be able to work until we got it right or finished it. And of course, what was happening is that commercial studios were starting to open up, and they ran their systems in a completely different way. No lab coats, no nothing. plenty of computer games or whatever it was that keep people entertained when they're not working.
That's amazing. So when you guys, we'll jump ahead, of course. There's so many great records and a lot of changes in between there. But Dark Side of the Moon became this album that has just inspired and influenced so many other bands. Talk to me about what those sessions were like with working, in the studio with Alan Parsons doing, the engineering. How long did the album actually end up taking to do?
Well, I can't remember exactly because that was probably the period we did the most work. I mean, we actually were we were touring that year. We made Pink Floyd at Pompeii, the movie, and we were in the studios. So it's very difficult now to go back and work out exactly how many sessions it took or quite how long it took. I would have said 4 to 5 months of recording to get it there. But as I say, broken up over a year period almost.
In between touring and filming and stuff like that. I mean, I know you've been asked this question a lot of times, but I mean, the impact of the record, I know initially you would never have guessed it would be that way because, pop music and current music, people didn't think it would last forever. But now the record's been so influential and it's just it still resonates, the subject matter, the songs that Roger wrote with so many people because it's a timeless record. What do you think about that in retrospect now when you look back?
Well, I think one of the things is that in order to have a record that works like that, it's not one thing that makes it. I mean, I absolutely agree. I think Roger's lyrics are extraordinary because they're more relevant to a 50-year-old, maybe, than to a 23-year-old, which was how old he was when he was writing that, 72, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was actually the fact that worked really well, that Alan Parsons was, the new young hot engineer at Abbey Road, and he made sure that the quality of the sound was fantastic. I think apart from the music, the fact that Hypnosis did that particular record sleeve that was a really iconic image, and actually the record company played a part in it all. We were with Capitol Records here and were a bit disappointed with our career with them. We'd been successful in Europe, successful in the UK. And they brought in a man called Bhaskar Menon as a new president. And he said, I'm going to make this record work. And he did. And he galvanized the sales force to make sure the record was out there. And as I say, it's more than one thing that made that record what it is.
And Money, of course, became a top 10 hit. It was a huge single in the States as well, which was a great thing. Talk to me about that with Hypnosis and Storm Thurgerson doing those album covers. There's so many iconic covers like "Wish You Were Here," "Animals," all those covers. I remember the first time going to London and seeing the building, and going, "Oh, it's Animals!" Just such an incredible thing.
Someone must have put a power station, just
station.
to go with the pig.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny, but. How involved were you guys? I mean, would they come to you with multiple ideas, or did you literally kind of let them run with it when it came to those incredible iconic covers?
No, generally they would come with multiple ideas. And I was talking to Aubrey Powell about that because quite often we'd see these covers and reject some of them, and then they'd pop up again on someone else's album about a week later. But the Dark Side, for instance, was a case where I think they did bring a raft of ideas down to the studio, but as soon as we saw that, everyone said, that's it, we'd like to go with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's that perfect, iconic cover. Now, moving on to the next album, with Wish You Were Here, a lot of subject matter, has always been talked about with Syd and the relationship with Syd, and, you guys came up and were so close, and then Syd showed up for the sessions for that. What was that experience like when Syd comes to the studio?
As with all good sort of rock and roll stories, no one's really sure what the truth is.
Yeah.
Because, yes, he certainly turned up, but some people think he turned up on 2 consecutive days. And I think they may be right. There's a photograph of him, and it looks as though there's 2 photographs, and one he's wearing one thing and the other something else. And I have no idea now whether it was the 1 or 2 day thing, but it was a very unsettling experience. I'd come into the control room from the studio, and I think David or Roger said, "Look who's here," and I didn't recognise him. I mean, he'd really changed.
Because he was bald at the time, right?
Yeah.
And shaved his eyebrows.
Put on a lot of weight, and
Yeah.
No, quite unnerving.
Yeah, and how long did he hang around? Did it kind of stop the recording for a little bit because just?
But again, I can't remember
Yeah.
how long, and I'm not even sure. I think maybe he went down to the canteen with a couple of, maybe with Roger or David or whatever. But it's one of those things. It was a long time ago now, but I think, because it was so unsettling, even if you'd asked me a week later, I'd have not been quite sure how long he'd been there or how it.
Because you were wanting to concentrate on making the record and getting that great record done.
Yeah, but I think probably that all got rather pushed to one side with sort of Syd being there.
Yeah, of course. It was amazing. Now, moving on to Animals, it was just incredible with songs like Pigs and, calling out some of, the people that were in politics over there in England, even though, of course, the album resonated here in America. It was always on the radio, and people loved the record, bought the record, including myself as a young teen. What was the reaction originally in the UK when they heard calling out White House and things like that?
Well, of course, again, historically, it wasn't as shocking as you might think, because actually at the same time the Sex Pistols were being launched.
God Save the Queen, right?
Yeah. So we were rather eclipsed by the punk revolution, but it probably got us through the sort of end of prog rock, in terms of being the major form of music, and sort of set us off on another tangent.
When it got to the Wall, and you had that incredibly ambitious, the Wall and everything that was built with the live show, how much were you guys really involved in, the conceptual side of the live show when that tour first took place, when the Wall came over?
Well, we were. I think one would have to say it was primarily Roger's baby, but there were elements of it that we were certainly involved in, and things like the Jerry Scarf, the graphics that he did, became very much part of what we did. And I'd been friends with Jerry from, for a few years, from Wish You Were Here days, when he'd done some film for the live show for that. But Roger had sort of very much come up with a timeline almost of how we were going to do this, and make the record, and then do the show, and then do a film, all of which would sort of plan to link into each other. In fact, it didn't quite work out like that, and the film became a rather different thing, and ended up with Alan Parker directing it, and Bob Geldof playing the lead, and so on.
Were you happy with the way Bob did his performance?
I thought he did a terrific job.
He did, didn't he?
Really good.
I thought it was great. Really Geldof's a pretty talented guy. It was amazing he was able to do all of that. It went well. It was a definite, I'm sure, surprise to you guys. I thought it was a great thing when Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 became a #1 record.
For Christmas.
And
Father Christmas didn't know what hit him.
It amazes me because, there's the stories behind it. The guys that were working the promos, working at Columbia at the time here in the States, that just wouldn't give up. When people were like, well, what do you mean? I don't know about this Pink Floyd. Like, no, just play it on the air. And you'd hear the stories about how then it would just react, right? When did you first become aware that, wow, this thing is taking shape? This is going to be a big hit before it goes to number one.
It was, we really didn't register it until quite late on, because in fact at the same time we were out here actually preparing for the Wall show, and so we were rehearsing that and doing the tech stuff for that, and then the kids' voices had all been put on in the UK with Nick Griffiths, who was our engineer, our sort of house engineer, while we were all out here, and he was sending things backwards and forwards to get the okay for it. Yeah. So we, as I say, we were a bit sort of behind the curve in understanding what was going on, and they it actually made it onto Top of the Pops. And of course, we again, I think fortunately we were out here, so they had to use some of the movie footage.
The video footage, because they usually don't do that unless they have to at Top of the Pops. They want you to be on there, and that would have been really ambitious to get the kids to do the backups and everything else. Would have been pretty crazy, right? Absolutely, and that's amazing. So, one of the highlights for me was getting to see you guys do that last performance with Rick at Live 8. I was doing a bunch of the interviews. Talked to David, talked to Roger there, and it was just, I mean, I loved seeing you guys play there, even though it was not a long set, but to see you guys play at Live 8, and that was the last performance with Rick, and it was good to see Roger and David on stage together again. Tell me about how that experience was for you, Nick.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great thing to do, and if it, as something to sign off with Rick, it was the perfect moment, really, and a great credit to Bob Geldof, who really put it together, and because David wasn't keen to do it at all, and then Bob actually, he called me, and I told him that I didn't think I could persuade him, but I thought Roger would, which turned out to be correct.
Yeah, and then he came and did it, which I thought was great.
No, loved it, absolutely loved it.
It was an incredible show. I'm so grateful that I got to be there for that. It was just, I got out from behind doing all the interviews. I'm making the Pink Floyd set. Walked out into the crowd right in the front area there. It was amazing. Let's talk about this exhibit right now. These Mortal Remains. It's so much cool stuff there. If you're fascinated with a band like I am, as a music nerd that I am, like you're going back to even the incredible sleeves, the artwork, the photos, all the way back to the very beginning. Tell me about that, when you and how it came together, and in your impression of all of it.
Well, in some ways, although I've been very involved in it and really enjoyed working on it, I very nearly scotched the whole thing initially, because I met the director of the museum, and he said, we'd like to consider doing this exhibition based on all your work for 50 years or whatever. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think we can do that. We just haven't got the stuff, we haven't kept things. In fact, when we did a sort of inventory of what clothes we had, because I was thinking of how many rock bands had wardrobe and so on. We managed to find one overcoat and a couple of sort of fancy shirts, and that was about it. So I couldn't see how it was going to work, and I thought the same with some of the equipment and the musical instruments and so on. But what happened was it all came out of the woodwork. That actually I knew I'd kept a few things, but actually David, Roger and Rick, and they found things, and then so did people we knew, or road crew or ex-road crew would go, oh, I've actually got one of those Binson Ecker Rex or something like that. Yeah. And fairly soon we actually, first of all, we had an exhibition, but then almost more interesting was thinking about how to present it, and how to show people something a bit more than a trip down memory lane. That actually, this is how we did it, this is how it works. And particularly on some of the recording things, we had this system whereby you could actually work the fader and bring the rhythm track for money in or out, or the vocals, or just the saxophone and so on. So that people could learn a little bit about how music is made and recorded and so on, and which gave it a slightly more worthwhile thing. I love the exhibition. It makes us look even smarter than we are. It looks as though everything was carefully thought out and went from one room to another.
It's incredible. Now, you've been doing Saucer Full of Secrets, Nick Masons, and the shows are cool. The set list is really, it's very interesting to me. I love it because, you go all the way back to the first two singles, and, and you'll play, stuff from Saucer Full of Secrets, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and then even our Adam Hart Mother, and all the records, Obscured by Clouds. How did you pick the songs that you do?
I think primarily we wanted to do something that kept us slightly apart from the tribute bands. So we really didn't want to do Dark Side and Money and Comfortably Numb. They're wonderful pieces, but we wanted to maybe do something that was a little bit different, where perhaps there was a bit more scope to try and do our version of things rather than slavishly try and do every note as it was on the record. And just really have fun with it, and go back to the old ways, if you like, that of being in a not a smaller band, but being on stage where you can actually see each other. Because one of the things is, once you're into the sort of stadium world, you're on such a big stage, and at my advanced stage, my eyes sort of having to peer through to the horizon. See who's there. Oh, it's Rick.
It's kind of like getting back in a room together, right, with the guys in the old days. How long? There's all the mythical stories about those early Technicolor Dream shows. The shows you guys did. How long was the longest set that you ever played? If you had to guess, did anybody ever tell you, "Hey guys, you were on for 3 hours," or how long?
I have no idea.
But would it be up there?
I've never been asked that before, and even if I start trying to research it, I don't think I'd know. I suppose, there was probably, a 45-minute version of Interstellar Overdrive at one time.
Yeah.
But where it was and when, things like the 14-hour Technicolor Dream is a good example that we were only there for the end of it. We actually had another
headlined,
gig.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You headlined and then moved on, right? Is that
no, we were doing a show in Holland, I think, and we actually had to fly back that night, and then get to Ali Pali, and I think we were probably on at about 4:00, and I think by then we were tired. The audience were completely gone. And I remember almost nothing about it at all, apart from thinking, "Oh, I think I'm ready to go home now."
Yeah, and probably at that point you were. Also, because you guys were moving, in those days, you had to move at such a quick pace, right? From recording to doing shows, doing television. Do you remember the video session for See Emily Play? Do you when you shot that?
Which one?
The film, the short film for See Emily Play, the promotional film.
What was it?
It was you guys running around in a field, pretty much. It was. It's so.
That's. No, I remember the one for Arnold Lane where we're on the beach.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what we even did for Emily.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of interesting stuff out there. Nick, I just want to tell you how much we love having you here, and how and thank you for coming, because this is it's just exciting that your big fans get to see all of this incredible stuff with this, and I'm so glad that you decided to move forward with it. It
was a very useful exercise anyway, because in a way it reminded me of what I really liked, which was actually playing the music. And the one thing, of course, is that there's obviously recordings with the museum show, but it's not the live music thing that is perhaps the very best. And there is one other aspect, I think, with the museum, which is that hopefully, as I say, people can learn a bit more about how things were done and how things are done now, and maybe make the point that it's not just us. It is Hypnosis, and it is Mark Fisher and Jerry Scarf and all the other people, the Alan Parsons, the Norman Smiths. Yeah. And if people want a career in music, you don't have to be on stage playing the guitar. You can be an engineer or a producer or a graphics designer or whatever. And from that point of view, I think it's got a purpose.
Yeah, I think it really does. I mean, I'm so grateful that you guys have put that together. And one last question is, when you look back now on Dark Side, people don't realize, that might be younger, how different and more primitive the technology was. Even though cutting edge for its time, there was a lot more involved in it, in doing something like going from Breathe to On the Run to time into different things. What was getting those things to link up when you were doing the syncs with On the Run and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. Was that like was that a time-taking task to get it perfectly?
Yeah, I mean, it was a time-taking task compared to how you do it now with a computer and Pro Tools or one of those sort of programs. But you also had savings because you had less. You had to make decisions as you ran. So once you'd got the bass and drums down, that was it. You weren't going to redo those. And so consequently, you didn't spend days in the studio trying to work out whether the hi-hat was quite right or whether you should redo that, and nitpicking, really. Yeah. And that sort of slightly broad brush approach, I think, made things faster, funnily enough.
Yeah, and better, because sometimes those things, those little things, those idiosyncrasies, those things give it so much character because they're perfect. Yeah. Like by being imperfect, that's the beauty of it, right? At the same time.
Yeah.
So those records sound great. I just want to tell you, Nick, it's so great to have you here. I want to thank you. I know that you have to get over to the exhibit, but it's just it's been a real pleasure to interview you and talk to you today.
My pleasure too.
It's I'm glad you came over here for this and to be there for I'm excited. I'm going to take some of our winners through it.
Oh, great!
I've done, and it's going to be. I'm really excited for myself as a music fan, as a Pink Floyd fan. I know that people really do have to see it. But Nick, the last thing I'll leave us with is though, any plans once things kind of slow down with COVID to maybe bring Saucerful of Secrets over here and do some shows?
Absolutely, I think there's a whole tidal wave of musicians waiting to get back out and play. I mean, it's been getting on for 2 years really since we were touring, and we absolutely want to get stuck back in. I mean, I think we're looking to see whether maybe we could do something early in the new year.
We can't wait, because as a drummer, I've always found that one of the things that's just so special about the way you play is, you could play a very driving beat or something, the things that you've done. Like if you listen to, the speeded up parts of Interstellar or See Emily Play or something, and then just the patience and, the beauty and the space that you also bring to some of the records. It's an incredible gifted way of playing drums. And
you get stuck into that thing, which I'm still not sure about. But this belief that British drummers sort of pull back a little bit, and American drummers like to be absolutely on it.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that a lot recently when with the very sad passing of Charlie Watts.
Oh yeah, Charlie was great, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. So, but Nick, thank you again for doing this. Thanks for taking the time to come in.
My pleasure.
And talking about all those different eras and records. And once again, I want to let everybody know it's very exciting. Pink Floyd, These Mortal Remains, the exhibit is out there now. And I'm Matt Pinfield. Thanks so much for watching us.